rejoicing and learning at this place of protection. And that's what my sermon's going to be about, is this place of protection. And what this protection is, exactly how we can make sure we are protected. And Yahweh prophesied. He promised that we would have protection. And Yahweh's prophecies are sure. Remember, Pastor said he's shepherding them. He's making sure, guarding them, making sure that they're going to take place exactly the way he said that they would. And they are coming to pass. If you look at the prophecies that have come to pass, the accuracy and the detail with which they have come to pass, it's obvious that there's no mere man that could have just thrown this thing together and said, this is going to occur, this is going to occur, this is going to occur, and then make everything line up exactly like that hundreds of years later. No man can do that. Yahweh's the one that did this. And that in itself should prove to you that Yahweh is true, and Yahweh is the only source of power in the universe. And He's the one that we at the house of Yahweh reverence. Praise Yahweh. Now if you'll turn over to Psalm 91. Psalm 91. And we're going to start with verse 1. It says, He who dwells, that's on page 470, He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. That secret place or hidden place is the place of protection. If you're hidden from harm, you're protected from harm. It's the place of protection. Will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Remember, the feasts are a shadow of protection. Just like we are here at the feast at the house of Yahweh, we're being protected from harm. We say to Yahweh, You are our refuge and our fortress. You are our Father. In you we will trust. Surely He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome deadly pestilence. We hear about the pestilence in Matthew 24, the disease epidemics that are ravaging the land, the earth. And we're protected from them. We're going to learn a little bit deeper how we're protected from them as well. He will cover you with His feathers. Under His wings you will trust. His truth, the laws are truth, will be your shield and your buckler. You will not be afraid of the terror of night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence. There's those diseases again that walk in darkness. Of course, the world is in darkness because of sin. And sin is what causes these diseases. So that's one way we're being protected. We've turned from sin. Nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 will fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. We're going to see it all around us, but it's not going to come near us. Only with your eyes you will look and you will see the reward of the wicked. That's another prophecy that's being fulfilled. And it's dependent on another prophecy, being the increase of knowledge. The television that Yahweh has allowed us to have in order to see these things occurring all around the world, but not be anywhere near it. So we should praise Yahweh for that. We don't have to go through it physically, but we get to see it firsthand to prove that His prophecies are true. Because you have made Yahweh your refuge, because you have made the Most High your house, the house of Yahweh, no evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your dwelling. He will give His malachim, or His messengers, His teachers, charge. Who are the teachers? We have pastor, we have the priests, kohanas, judges, that are concerning you to keep you in all your ways. And notice, protect you. The teaching, following the teaching, brings protection. They will bear you up in their hands so you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and adder. But notice verse 14, because you have set your love, your respect upon me, I will deliver you. I will set you on high because you know my name. You will call me and I will answer you. I will be with you in trouble. I will deliver you and honor you. With long life I will satisfy you and I will show you my salvation, Yahshua Messiah. So notice all these things that are a part of that protection. We have healing. We have long life, which will be added to you if you keep the laws of Yahweh, if you follow Yahweh's laws. That's all part of protection. And Pastor said several times he's seen people come here and they were so sick, he was amazed. But over the years, he's seen how much their health has improved. That's protection. So Yahweh has promised to protect His house. Now there's several ways or several events that we've seen take place over the years that strongly show Yahweh's protection for His house. Pastors mentioned several times the wind currents. Anytime there's some event in the world, remember the mad cow scare, and they were burning dead cows over in Britain, and the wind currents shifted and went right over Texas. Anytime there's anything negative in the air, the wind currents shift, coincidentally or accidentally. No, Yahweh knows what he's doing. And Yahshua, who's guarding the weather, knows what he's doing. The wind currents shift over Texas. Earthquakes. Remember, Pastor said several times, Clyde is one of the least likely places, Abilene-Clyde area is one of the least likely places for an earthquake. So I looked that up. So we have earthquake information for Clyde, Texas. Risk level, very low. All the way at the bottom of the scale. The number of earthquakes in Clyde since 1931, 0. Praise Yahweh. Probability of a 5.0 earthquake within the next 50 years, less than 0. 0.16, 16. That's another number you should keep in mind. Okay, but so just notice that how Clyde is one of the least likely places in the world for earthquakes, and it's prophesied that there will be earthquakes all around us in Matthew 24. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So the earthquakes. Another thing we have is the red clay. We have to be healthy, right? And we have to have clean water. Remember, all around the world, the water's contaminated. There's marijuana in the water. There's cocaine in the water. People are getting high off the water, getting sick off the drugs that are being flushed into the septic tanks or into the sewers, which are being refined and go back into our system to drink again. So that's ridiculous, but that's what the world is drinking, their own urine and feces. But we have clean water. We even have red clay. If you go outside and try to dig, you'll find out we got some hard red clay around here. And that's purifying the water. If you look up red clay, it shows just how purifying it is. And the water seeps through that and it pulls out different toxins. There was a hailstorm in Abilene on June 12th of all dates, 2014. And damage estimate in Texas hailstorm pegged at $400 million. You remember Pastor talked about this hailstorm. And the June 12th hailstorm in Abilene, Texas, is expected to hit $400 million in insured losses to vehicles, homes, and commercial property. I've never seen cars destroyed like this, Leroy Perkins said. Softball-sized hail in 2011, but this one was worse. A lot of cars were declared totaled from the damage, and damage just to cars and trucks in Abilene will exceed $100 million. That occurred in Abilene. I remember we were out here that day, and we got some rain, we got some little tiny pea-sized hail, and then all of a sudden I see cars driving by with big dents in the windows and windshields, and I was like, what in the world took place? But there's people that were in Abilene, and the moment they turned on to 254, the hail was gone. It was like literally, they said it looked like there was just a line going by where the hail stopped. This is $400 million in damage, but we didn't get hardly anything out here. Praise Yahweh. If you remember back in 2009, there was a huge fire that took place just south of here. A huge fire that took place. How many of you remember that really big fire? Remember what I'm talking about? All right, I see a lot of hands. There was a huge fire that took place out here. The wind shifted twice. In like 15, 20 minutes, the wind direction shifted twice. And that's not something you see often. The fire blew right along this fence line, wind shifted, blew right along this fence line. Didn't touch the house of Yahweh property. Praise Yahweh. And I'm not making this up. You can ask several people in the audience who saw and witnessed the same thing. So, another thing. There's a lot of trees around here, right? There's two types of trees we see a lot around here. There's mesquite trees, and what's the other one? Oak. In fact, we stay on Oak Forest Road, right? So, Pastor's talked about the oak tree several times, but, we want to make sure he's not making any of this up, right? He could be just making this up just to trick us. Is that what he's doing? No. Okay? But let's get the proof anyway. Harvesting toxins. If you talk to employees at one of the U.S. government's nuclear facilities long enough, you're likely to hear a lot of interesting stories about the early days of dealing with nuclear materials. If you remember, they couldn't even contain their nuclear missiles. They had some of them falling up and planes catching on fire. Over Abilene, by the way, no nuclear material was released. I wonder why. Of course, Yahweh's protecting his area. But Nuclear materials. One apparently originating in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, involves an underground tank and a tree. During a regular check, anyway, there was some radioactive material in the area, and they found no leaks, no spills, and everything. But a year later, the contamination was back. Let's see here. All right, we're talking about an oak tree here that was next to a radioactive tank, and they were wondering where this radiation was being sucked up from. They couldn't figure it out. Anyway, they found the culprit, an oak tree. The tree had sunk its roots into the tank and pulling up the contaminated material. While one would expect the whole tree to become radioactive, that wasn't the case. It went out through the leaves. Okay, and we're surrounded by oak trees. And this was in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. You can look this up. Okay, and so you notice Yahweh baffles people through his knowledge of, just how he protects his house. And we're surrounded by oak trees. We're surrounded with red clay. There's all kind of things pointing to the protection Yahweh has for his house. So, obviously, you want to be here at Abel. Last Feast Passover was the first time that I've heard pastors go so far as to say, come to Abel. There's even jobs in Abilene to go do. He always says, come and join the work here, which is the most important thing. But he said, just get here. There's jobs even in Abilene if you don't want to do that. Get here. So he was really, really persistent about that. Praise Yahweh. But this is the protected place. Now there's some more to that. You can't just come here and expect, okay, now I'm here, I can do whatever I want and still be protected. Why is that? Yahweh says, I'm going to protect this place, but that guy right here, he's sinning, I'm going to cast a magic spell on him, and he's not going to be protected. No. Remember what Isaiah 59 tells us. Our own sins cut us off from Yahweh. And that's not magical either. Turn over to Yachanan Mark. Or rather, turn over to Luke. Let's turn over to Luke first. Luke chapter 17. And I'm not going to be able to read as much as I'd like to, but read it for yourself. It's the story of the 10 lepers. Luke 17, verse 11 to 19. But I'm just going to read a few verses. The lepers went to Yeshua, and Yeshua told them in verse 14, go present yourself to the priest. And as they went, they became cleansed. Of course, they were walking down the road to the priest, and all of a sudden, boop, leprosy was gone, right? Magic. No. So go present yourself to the priest. What do the priests do? They teach. They present the law to people to show this is what the scripture says about how to become cleansed. And then on verse 19, the one came back to Yeshua and he said, arise, go on your way. Your faith has made you well. You just believed and you were made well, right? No. Faith without works is dead. Remember that. And Yachanan Mark 5, I'm going to have to be really quick here. Yachanan Mark 5 talks about a similar situation where there was a woman who had some problems, and she went to Yeshua, and he told her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your faith has made you well. And later down in verse 36, he even said, only believe. Oh, my word. Yeshua's teaching only believe, right? Don't do anything else? All right. The first book of Israel, chapter 11, verse 37. Believe is to obey. To believe means to obey. So, in order to be protected, in order to be healed, remember, healing is part of protection, you have to be obedient to every word from the mouth of Yahweh. And that's the only way you'll be truly protected. And how did Yeshua do this? Did he, have some magic thing? No, he knew the teachings. He studied the scriptures. And he knew what the scripture said would heal somebody, would cleanse a person's body. In the same way, when pastor says, do your cleanses, we have to do our cleanses. That's how we're protected. In the same way, when he says, go to the counselors, Proverbs 11:14 talks about the counselors. In a multitude of wise counselors, you will find safety or protection. Go to your counselors and do what they say. And through them, we have protection. Now, this protection helps us to overcome. And through overcoming sin, we're protected by keeping the laws of Yahweh. And he who overcomes will become a pillar in Yahweh's house. Turn over to Psalms real quick. This is my last scripture. Turn over to Psalm real quick. 75. Psalm 75. And verse 3. And remember the destruction that is going to come upon all the earth because they aren't protected, because they don't keep Yahweh's laws, because they don't come here to Abel. Verse 3, when the earth quakes and all who dwell in it reel, remember the earth is going to reel to and fro, who is Yahweh going to hold firm? The pillars, the ones who stand firm and keep Yahweh's laws, who overcome, are the ones who will be protected. Not through magic, but through keeping the laws of Yahweh. That's Psalm 75, verse 3. So remember that. We have the last 3.5 years coming upon us, where they're going to sign this peace treaty, and Pastor said himself a few weeks ago, things are going to get pretty crazy. There's going to be an hour of nuclear burning upon the earth. But remember, Yahweh is going to encamp around his house. He's going to protect his house. Can we trust that Yahweh is going to do that? Praise Yahweh. Yahweh's prophecies are true. He guards them and shepherds them to make sure they're going to take place. So stand strong with Yahweh. Follow the teachings, because those teachings are what bring true protection. With that, if you'll all please stand. I'd like to turn it over to another great teacher, the great Khan Benjamin Yilia Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom.